All right, we'll call the regular meeting of the Common Council to order. Roll call, please.
Seth.
Here.
Andrew.
Here.
Todd Kirking.
Here.
Emma.
Here.
Todd Spaeth.
Here.
Cindy.
Here.
John.
Here.
Crystal.
Here.
Steve.
Here.
And Justin will not be here tonight.
And we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, agenda item number 2, approval of the March 25th, 2025 regular council minutes.
And this is Crystal. I would move approval of those minutes with no additions or corrections.
This is Seth. I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, we'll move on to council announcements. Does anybody have an announcement?
I'll just make one real quick. I was waiting for Cindy to jump in because she usually beats me to punch. Just that the comprehensive plan survey has been extended for those who would like to take it and who haven't had the chance yet. New deadline for that is next Tuesday, April 15th, 8 p.m. So if you want to have your voice heard and contribute to the survey, please do so. It is online, or paper copies are available at the library or at City Hall.
Thank you, Nate. Item number 4, first period for public comment. And if anybody has any public comments, please come on up to the lectern there, turn the microphone on, tell us who you are, where you live. Keep it to 3 minutes or less.
Good. Hi, everybody. Gregory Splinter on the West Decker, across from the park. What brings me in today is a quest to be helpful. A short story is that over the past months, especially as an architect here in town, people come to me and they have projects to do. And I'm finding that they're experiencing a lot of frustration, and that they're not, they're everyday people wanting to do really good projects that are helpful in town and helpful for them. And they're trying to do all the right things, but there's a lot of, it's a jumble of information. So without talking down to anybody, I don't know who my audience is. So I'm just gonna, I know a lot of you know all this already, but I'm just gonna say it sort of, succinctly. So apologies if you know all this, but so this is the information that I would like for people who are out there doing some restoration projects, housing projects, what have you. So let me say it this way. There's apples and oranges. There's a firewall between zoning ordinances and building codes. The two don't match at all. There's a firewall between the two. One is like wearing pants and the other is like wearing a shirt. You need them both, but you wouldn't switch those around. So the zoning ordinances, of course, are legislated and enforced by you. And that's about it. The other side of the firewall are the building codes. And that's where a lot of the information is, because it's really complicated. I'm going to say it really simply here. So people that don't do this every day, they're trying to do a project and they're trying to get access to information. So let me say it this way. So zoning ordinance is city legislation, you guys. Building codes are the state. And under the building codes, there's 2 variations of that same building code legislated by the state of Wisconsin and enforced by them. The 2 building codes are the Uniform Dwelling Code, the UDC, and that's applicable only to 1 and 2 dwelling housing units. No more. That's it. And a lot of the problem is that people want to do 3 units or 4 units, and they go, well, I'm trying to get a permit. And then they start talking about zoning or ordinances, which have nothing to do with them getting a building permit. There's some of the words are confusing. In zoning ordinances, we use R1, R2, R3. In building codes, we use R1, R2, R3. So there's this mixed match of like, well, I don't know. It all sounds the same to me. So that's what I'm here for today, to sort of, articulate on that. So another part of the problem is that when it goes into commercial building codes, not the UDC, but the commercials, that's 3 dwelling units or more, then things in residential, everything needs to be sprinklered. And that makes it really difficult financially on these people that are trying to do these smaller projects. They're putting together their savings. They want to do the right thing. They're trying to earn a couple bucks. It's great for the community because we need the housing. So I just wanted to articulate that a little bit today, in about 3 minutes. Took me about 20 years to talk about in 3 minutes. I don't know if there's anything else I want to say around that. So if people want to do a project that's 3 units or more, they have to go through commercial building code. And that also means that they have to go through state permitting to do that, and then have it inspected and the whole bit. So Lori and Nate, I know you guys know a lot of this, but if people come to the city hall, if they know that they're going to do a project like this, and if you can kind of give them that direction at the get-go, then I think that would really be helpful because there's a lot of frustration out there. And so I know I'm the only one that's supposed to talk, but if somebody has a question, I'd be willing to field it. I know a lot of people know this already, but I just kind of like bundled it all together. Okay, you're welcome. Good to see you all. You're welcome.
All right, anyone else have public comment? Is there anyone online?
Few individuals online, if anybody would like to make a public comment, they can do so at this time. I think you're good, Steve.
Okay. We'll move on to agenda item number 5, appointment of Steve Willis as City of Viroqua representative on the Viroqua Westby Multi-Use Trail Committee to replace Cindy. I guess we're going to go to you on this appointment.
Well, Steve is, you may know him. He's gonna, yeah. I've been on the committee for a long time, and I thought it would be nice to give somebody else a chance. Plus, you ride your bike all over town also, and I know your kids are probably learning how to ride bikes. And it just seemed like a good timing. So I'm glad that you're interested.
Cindy, I don't know how much everybody knows about the Viroqua Westby Trail Committee and what they do. It's probably one of our lesser known groups, sort of operating a little bit more discreetly,
Yeah.
but they are a public group, and maybe share a little bit about what you guys do.
Yeah, we meet in the county building, the county annex, and it's what, 11 years, 12 years now since the trail was built. And they are always very conscious of the money that they have and how much they're going to need. Someday it's going to have to be redone. And just the maintenance of it. We meet monthly during the fall well, we don't meet during the winter. We talk about, the problems on the trail and what needs to be done. And we have Alan Berg, who takes care of the mowing, and he's really up on what's going on with what needs to be fixed, the low areas and trouble spots in the tunnel. And it's just, we may just take care of the trail. That's what we do. So the city gives us $1,700, is it, a year? Something like that. Westby gives us $1,700. We have a group of people that give us so much a year that kind of pledge. And it was when the trail first started, it was a 10-year pledge of quite a few different people. And then we had to redo that, try to get those people to sign up again last year, year before, something like that. So I don't know, it's basically just promote the trail. There's a Facebook page. Try to, it's always being used. It's, if you notice, so really haven't had any major problems. Don't use it in the winter because it's hard on the trail. So Anybody have any questions? I guess there's not really too much to say, except that we just watch and take care of the trail.
How many of you are on the committee?
There's a mayor from Westby, and then myself from City of Iroquois, and then there's Alan Berg, and who's, like I said, is a maintenance person. Must be about 5 of us. Arthur Bernstein is the chair. And then there's Marty up from the county, who's the parks. Takes care, yeah, so.
And now Steve replacing you.
And Steve is going to, yes, been willing to replace me.
Yes, I will.
I think he'd be a nice, good addition.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
So I make a motion that Steve Willis replaces me on the Viroqua Westby Multi-Use Trail Committee.
This is Seth. I'll second that motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, Cindy. All right, agenda item number 6, appointment of Tanya Forecash to the Housing Advisory Committee for a 3-year term.
Okay, Nate here. I was just trying to text back and forth with the mayor, who obviously could not be here tonight, regarding this appointment. And he did know that she was planning on being here, but I do not yet see her in the crowd. He did note, and I think it's pronounced, isn't it Tanya?
I believe you're correct. Yeah.
Yes, Tanya was recommended to be part of the Housing Advisory Board by one of the current members, Shane Davey. She and her husband own, of course, Forecash Electrical in town, are very involved in other areas of the community, and that's what he was able to text me while he was in another meeting. So,
Talk about the housing board?
I mean, you can, if you would like. I think that one we're maybe a little bit more familiar with as being a more recent one, but feel free, but that's the information I have on Tanya tonight.
The Housing Advisory Committee was formed by the council to provide recommendations to them on housing topics. And we've probably been meeting for about 1.5 years now. We spent about almost 9 months educating ourselves as to what's going on. And as we heard earlier, there's a lot of confusion between the layers of things. We also are excited to have a comprehensive plan ongoing right now, because we're hoping that's going to provide us with some groundwork. Currently, we're working on accessory dwelling units. We're working on tiny houses and short-term rentals, and it gets very lively. So we're looking forward to having some new members. Thanks.
Just a question. I know when the board was created, there were certain individuals that were asked to be on the board because they had certain expertise. Does Tanya have one of those? Okay, I'm assuming because of the electric trade, she probably has some,
Yeah, there were
Knowledge.
representation
right,
designations in the ordinance originally, and that would be the mayor's jurisdiction.
fair enough.
Yeah, and I think you're covered with most of the individuals you're looking for, because it was things like a realtor, somebody from the Airbnbs, or, short-term lease lodging area, somebody who represented, will help me out now.
It is 1 realtor, 1 landlord, 1 lender, 2 older people, 6 citizens at large. And so we are currently 1 council member short, just so you're aware.
But this, essentially, she would be filling a member at large seat.
I guess we're looking for a motion then.
This is Todd. I make a motion to appoint Tanya Forecash to the Housing Advisory Committee for a 3-year term.
This is Seth. I'll second that.
And we have a first and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Congratulations, Tanya.
And yeah,
All right, number 7, appointment of Richard Loomis to the Tourism Commission for a 1-year term expiring April 30th, 26, replacing Clinton Hardesty.
Yes, Clinton decided that he had too much going on with his business. He's going gangbusters with Viroqua Floral. So he asked to be taken off. And Richard Loomis was nice enough to agree to it. Would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself? His bio is in the packet.
Evening. I'm Richard Loomis, obviously, and relevant experience, it's in my bio, but I grew up in La Crosse. Like a lot of people, I ended up on the West Coast, then came back, brought my family back in 2007. I was living in West Salem. After my wife passed away and my children were grown up, I built and moved to Viroqua. Here, relevant experience related to tourism. My business career was in mostly with consulting firms working in market analysis and competitive analysis. And from what I understand from Cindy and what I've read about the Tourism Commission, that may prove relevant experience for promotion of our community. The other things, I think there is some interest by members of the council or by members of the Tourism Commission regarding promoting the airport from a tourism standpoint. I am an active participant and a member and volunteer with the local chapter of the Experimental Aircraft Association. For those of you not familiar, it's not a really good name. It sounds like you're a test pilot. Yeah, it's basically a general aviation organization that puts on the Oshkosh fly-in every year, and they have local chapters. And Chapter 1439 is based here at the Viroqua Airport. So we put on a fly-in every July, just prior to Oshkosh, and we also do a number of that includes not just during that fly-in, but also throughout the year. We're active in getting people, especially youngsters, usually in the middle school to high school range, interested in aviation. That includes taking them on flights, doing some ground instruction with them. We don't get them licensed, but at least get them exposed to it and see if it's of interest. With that, are there any questions for me or?
Richard has a really nice airplane out of the airport, I might add.
I have a small airplane. It's a two-seater. When you tell people that aren't pilots, he's got an airplane. It's like, it's a Gulfstream or something. No, it's it's an aluminum kite, but it'll get me there. Yeah.
Pedals.
Yeah. I have to pedal really hard to get up to altitude. Yeah.
No, I think that he will make a real good addition to the Tourism Commission for the reasons he stated, and also just because the other three are all about the same age. They all work downtown. This is going to widen our horizons a little bit.
Oh, I should have mentioned, I am retired, so I can dedicate time to this. Retired in August of 2022. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
I'll make a motion. We appoint Richard Loomis to the Tourism Commission for 1 year.
I don't second it.
All right. First and second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Congratulations. All right. On to number 8, reappointment of Cindy Hubbard, Catherine Ashley, and Josh Brown to the Tourism Commission for a 1-year term expiring March 30th, 26.
We've been kind of lapsed in doing our 1-year reappointments, but we're going to try to get going on that. Since a short amount of time. I don't know why they made it 1 year. Catherine Ashley, Josh Brown. I said 3 people. I forgot Clinton's not on anymore. The 2 people I mentioned about the same age and they work downtown. Catherine Ashley owns Utopia. And Josh Brown owns we call it the Opera House or he owns the other half of the Mr. G building. So he has Airbnbs around town. He's on the fire department. So he's active in the community. And they're good additions. They're good members of the commission. So I'd like to see them and they're willing to serve. So I'd like to see them reappointed, and myself also. Any questions?
All right, I guess we'll be looking for a motion.
This is Crystal, and I would move that we reappoint Cindy Hubbard, Catherine Ashley, and Josh Brown to the Tourism Commission for 1-year terms, and they would expire April 30th of 2026.
This is John. I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
And thank you, Cindy, Catherine, and Josh. Thank you. And moving on to number 9, review and approval of certified survey map Baroque Housing Authority, 200 Parkview Court. That comes from the Plan Commission.
Okay, this went to the Plan Commission, I believe it was last week, and they forwarded it with their approval. And Nate, you want to explain the small portion of the CSM that's being transferred over?
Yeah, so quite a while ago, maybe even 2 years ago, we had been in conversation with the Viroqua Housing Authority about a piece of land at the very west side of the bathhouse property. You can see here, this is the bathhouse property, and this piece of land, this skinny rectangle here, is essentially a 10-foot wide piece of property that runs on the other side of the fence, right? So it's on the VHA side of the fence, but it's our property. And it stops and terminates on the south end, right where the concrete pad is at the old filter house. And so essentially the reason we're CSMing this off and giving it to them is we don't need it, right? It's, if anything, in working with Kale and Boone before him, they would just identify how it was a nightmare to maintain because you'd have to go around the fence and we'd whack it down. It was just a challenge and it doesn't really prove any use to us. But for the housing authority to have it, it means that they can do some additions to their parking lot and really re-establish their retaining wall, which was failing. And so they need to have this property so that they can take on those improvements. And so council approved this sort of deal 2 years ago. And this is, it's just taking a bit for the housing authority and working in conjunction with the Department of Public Housing, I believe, to sort of get to this point, going through the processes that they have to go through. So that's what the CSM is there for. And then as you can tell, the Eagles property to the north entered into a similar agreement with the housing authority so that they could also use the back portion of their land.
Thank you, Nate. All right. Any questions? Don, I'll be looking for a motion.
This is Crystal, and I would move approval of the certified survey map for the Housing Authority for 200 Parkview Court.
Cindy, I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Moving on to item number 10, discussion with possible action on request for a one-time contribution to Vernon County Historical Society project.
Well, thank you guys for letting me come back so soon. I have worked with county and city budgets for about 40 years, so I understand the difficulty in me asking for $5,000 when it's not in the budget. I understand that very well. I also know the city budget is not much different than our normal household budget. All of a sudden, Susie needs braces, little Johnny fell out of the tree and broke his arm. Some expenses just come up and we got to be creative and find a way to cover them. It would be much easier if I was asking for a pledge for 2026, and that's a possibility. But bear in mind, if I was asking for 2026, I'd be asking for a heck of a lot more than $5,000. It would be 10 or 20 or more. And it wouldn't be a problem because it would be in the budgeting process. What I really want to get across is the society would appreciate anything the city can do. I just want the council to be comfortable with the decision. And I got open house flyers. We're going to have an open house April 27th to explain the project, answer any questions. The vendors will be there, I'll be there, and it'll be a fun time. I'll promise I'll even bring cookies. And another thing Nate mentioned, if the council didn't mind, maybe I could ask Justin if he would consider writing just a letter of support. I mean, it wouldn't hurt and it might help for the grant that I was here last time talking about.
Gail, did you want to just provide an update on the grant? I think that email just went to Cindy and myself. Do you maybe want to share with the council where that grant sits in terms of you finding another?
Oh, okay. And with Lori's question, I was able to let you know last time that I was actually talking to a couple other municipalities too, because, time was short and I had to get my ducks in a row. I'm a farmer, but I still have problems herding ducks and chickens. But anyway, I was able to find another supporter of the grant, and I have my grant submitted. So I was able to relinquish my position with the city, and I thank you for your support, so that Cindy could do her grant. So hopefully it works out and we both get the grant. That would be the perfect world situation.
Is there any I saw some quizzical looks. Is there any questions about what was decided at the last meeting regarding pursuing the Vernon County's Community Funds Program? Okay, so Gail was able to find a different township, and so therefore we're moving forward with putting in an application for the bathhouse project. Okay. Okay.
I just wanted you to know I'm pretty excited and scared to death. But because of possible increases in prices, because both vendors are pushing it, I'm quite certain we're going to order the equipment the end of this month. This project is going to happen. We are at about 70,000 and we need 125, and we have a lot of leads out there. So I give you my word, it's going to happen. But $5,000 from the city would really help make it happen. So if you don't have any questions for me, I know you got a long agenda.
I just have one question. Could you refresh us what the project is for?
Okay, I'm sorry. The project is installing heating and cooling, HVAC, in the second and third floors of the museum, which has never had heating and cooling since it was purchased from the hospital way back when. In the I'm not even going to say when, I forget the. But anyway, this climate controls the display rooms only. This is the minimum project to climate control the display rooms, basically to save the building, the historic building, and all of its artifacts. And what people don't realize, heating and cooling is great, but with these artifacts, moisture control is the big issue. And that takes care of it. Thanks for asking. I just assume everybody knows because I live and breathe this 24/7. Thank you.
Thanks, Gail.
So regarding this item, I talked to Gail beforehand, and I had noted to him, that the city's budget is, the allocations that are out there are out there. People are depending on the money that they've been allocated to. We don't have pockets of money, and as he nicely articulated, if you wanted to make a contribution, it would have to be taken away from somewhere else that's in the budget already. And frankly, I don't have something for you to pull from. Fireworks are always an option. Those are about $5,000, but we missed out on fireworks last year. We are feeling confident that fireworks will move forward this year. But I mean, those are the sort of things where it's like, I really don't feel comfortable suggesting other items that are your sort of day-to-day city needs, right? You're talking about sports equipment, you're talking about contracts for printers, you're talking, just things like that. I did talk to Gail about possibly doing the pledge for 2026. That's a little bit more feasible, although I get very anxious about committing to expenses before we even begin to start talking about the budgeting process, right? Because we don't know what health insurance is going to look like. And we're still, we continue to be behind on catching up to wages, all sorts of things. I mean, those of you who've been through the budget team with me know exactly what kind of challenges we're talking about. And the department heads will be the first ones to reiterate that. So I don't have a lot of good solutions for you to Gail's request, frankly. Don't know, though, that I have not spent a ton of time looking at. There may be some creative options that we continue to look at. I'm just going to need some time to put into that. I don't know if I have to ask some questions about how other communities maybe try to support community organizations in this fashion when they themselves are on limited budgets. I just haven't, since Gail approached me, early last week, mid last week. Yeah, so I just haven't had a ton of time to really dedicate to trying to find some options for you guys. I don't like coming to these meetings and saying, well, here's a request and I don't know what to tell you about it, but that's what I'm telling you right now.
Well, could we let you have some time to look into it and then come back, in a month or something? Or however long you'd like. And all of us can consider also pledging money towards the project.
Is that,
Yeah, that's fine. And again, I don't want it. I have a couple ideas rolling around the head that I would like to give a chance to see if they have legs to it, but I don't want to make any I don't want to create any false hope here.
Yeah.
But I will see what's out there.
I know they have rooms that naming rights and rooms and things. My sister and I have done the teacher's room or whatever, education room or something like that. So the school room, thank you, because there's so many teachers in my family.
Don't even know how to word it, but I'm just gonna flat out say it. The reason I'm pushing this hard is I'm kind of the bonehead behind this whole thing, pushing it, making it happen. And I'm gonna be gone for over a month, leaving the first part of May. That's why it would be nice to have some direction ASAP. Actually, next week I got the board meeting where I'm gonna push them to vote to make, it would be 40, 50, 57,000 in down payments on equipment and installation. So it's a big commitment. So I need to go there with my, like I said before, my ducks in a row. And I give you my word it's going to happen, but it's not easy. This is pretty uncertain times for the city. It's pretty uncertain times for everyone. And people are starting to withdraw and really worry about how much money they're going to need in the future. And I don't worry about it. I never had any money, so no big deal. Anyway, whatever you can do, that's what we got to live with. And remember, Nate does have that Midas touch.
Gail and his wife have decided that after 50 years, maybe they should have a honeymoon. So that's what they're going to do for a month.
We gotta wait.
Is there a way to table this until the next council meeting,
there is.
which is on the
yes.
22nd of April? And I know that, oh,
Yeah, the 29th.
okay. This one. Okay, never mind.
Do you want to?
Can I make a motion?
Yeah.
To table that until our next council meeting? Is that okay?
Cindy, I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thanks, Gail. On to item number 11, discussion with possible action regarding new design vendor for Eckert Park Playground project. And we'll have Kale fill us in on what's going on there.
Okay, so thank you guys. I appreciate your opportunity to talk to you about the Eckhart Playground update. This was not taken to Park and Rec because we've been trying to move along the process and fill you guys in. So it's coming to you guys first. And then we'll probably have a Park and Rec meeting here shortly to discuss after next week's third round of renderings. So just to give you an update, the last time we had talked about a month ago was getting out of the contract with Leathers. We're still working with them, so I don't have anything new to say about them. We talked to them about a month ago and just received information today, so I haven't had much time to dive into it. So hopefully next council will bring something back to you guys to discuss about the Leathers agreement. But in that time, we had talked with 5 other companies, and you'll see a portion of them on this thing, so you can skip ahead. Again, our leadership team has been extremely busy the last month. It seems like we've had a meeting every week in the snowstorms. So it's been challenging to get everybody here, but we've done a fantastic job. And so just remember that we're trying to meet as a leadership team to bring information back to you to agree, if you want to move ahead. So back in February, we sent out a design request to 5 different companies. I'll show more companies were on here, but after reviewing them, we decided upon 5 different companies that we felt could produce what we wanted. So again, we asked everybody to take the current playground and come up with something, expand in a few areas that we thought we could expand in, to make the playground just more inviting for the community. Again, the priorities were to keep it pretty much the same as what we have, in regards to natural feel. We know we can't get the wood. Leathers is pretty much the only playground company that does a version of wood. So like we had discussed, we're looking at more metal playgrounds at this time. And then we were hoping to make it more all-inclusive with the tot area being PIP, which is, can't think of the word. Poured in place surfacing. So, and then we've kind of, as a leadership team, wanted the earth shaping. So like tunnels, hills, you'll see some of that in the slides. But we really wanted the climbing aspects, the swings, the traditional playground and that. So again, all 5 companies received this information from us. And then if you want to move ahead. So these were the companies that we first talked about. As you can see, there's multiple companies. From that, we chose 5 that we felt that would work well with us. So again, a little timeline. We reached out in February. We already had the drawings that you'll see are the rendering 2s. So we've already went through a first rendering, got rid of 1 company. 4 companies were very competitive. So we were hoping to throw out more, but we just couldn't at that time. So we had 4 companies provide a second rendering. We've narrowed it down to 2 that we really like. We'd like to get your input here. And they have until next Wednesday, before our leadership meeting. And then we're hoping to bring our recommendation back to council on the 22nd of which one we would like to work with, do a drawing and get a final design for them. All these companies do not have a design fee with them. They've been turning this stuff around pretty quickly, as you can see, with input from us. So it's been exciting on how fast it's been with 4 different companies. So the first rendering, these 2 renderings we decided not to go with. The first one was from Gerber Landscape Structures. We chose them because of they helped build Train Park in La Crosse, and we've heard a lot of good things about them. So we were hoping for something from Gerber. The leadership committee just felt that they didn't provide us what we really wanted, which was a little disappointing. I thought we could have did more. But again, with the short turnarounds, this is what we got too. So, and you can go to the next one. It shows another one. So that's kind of the overall design that we wanted, to play off the existing sidewalk and wrap a sidewalk around, central seating location in the middle for groups like daycares and school groups that could sit and kind of see the whole playground. The earthscaping is up on the top. again, to get away from the traditional playground structure, we like the idea of kind of playing off the earth and have more interest in the tot area. So again, all 4 designs are kind of similar. They're just different in the playground aspects. This one did not have a net climber. So that was one of the things that they had a net climber, but it was smaller than the ones that you'll see. So again, moving on. This one was Midwest Playscapes. They had a lot of good things that we did like that we kind of used towards the other 2 companies that we're looking at going with. But again, just not a lot of play that I guess the leadership and myself just felt there was not a lot of play. Their tot area is awesome, but with our budget, we have to give and take and what we want. So we decided, you know, the 5 to 12 is where we would like to spend the more money than the tot area. Again, I don't know if that's good or bad, but that's what we kind of as a group determined what we'd like to see. You can move on to the next drawing of Midwest. This is theirs. As you can see, their tot area is pretty elaborate. Lots of hills, lots of things. So we're trying to get that with the next 2. Double zip lines, you know, everything that everybody else kind of had. Again, we did like this central seating location where it feels like one big playground and the sidewalk doesn't cut the 2 playgrounds in half. So in the next renderings from the next 2 companies, you'll see more of that. So I kind of already talked about this stuff, so you can move forward on that. So Copan is one that we're bringing in next Wednesday for an interview. We chose them again because they were a natural feel. They had that. But with the equipment that they provided, we just didn't feel like that was what we wanted. The 2 castles, pretty smaller. So they're redesigning theirs to a metal play structure this next week, and we'll see what they come back as. You can move ahead. So they got the double zip lines. This will kind of stay in the wood structure. So some of this with Copan will be wood and metal. And you can see the giant net climber in the back, which we all kind of liked. So we're kind of, again, trying to get information from them. So Copan is one, and then Lee Recreation in Burke. This is a Wisconsin company. Copan is a more, they're based overseas, but they have one in Austin, Texas is their plant. This one just caught our eyes again because you can see the magnitude of the 5 to 12 play structure. And that really, in my opinion, really just liked how much play aspects there is in that structure. But again, we're looking at a bigger net climber. They only have 1 zip line. So we're working with them, and if they can get 2, and their tot area, if we can dress that up a little bit and go to a central seating area, so that sidewalk won't go through anymore. This one has a little bit more all-inclusive play. As you can see that slide, you can go back to that one. That slide right there, person in a wheelchair or handicap accessible can climb up that ramp, come down and slide down and just keep making continuous loops. They also have a wheelchair rocker built on to their playground. You can't see it in this drawing, but this one had a little bit more all-inclusive play functions. So that's the 2 that we're looking at. I know this is short notice. I know you got the Lee Burke because that's the one we were looking at right away, but we wanted to go back to Copan and see if they could provide us with a metal structure to compare apples to apples. So based on the information that you saw from Lee Burke and a short slide on Copan, is there anything that I might be missing or the leadership might be missing that you might want to see in regards to the playground?
I just wondered about shade options for people.
So we've talked about that too, to kind of bring you up to speed on that. There are 3 trees that we have considered removing if needed. But there's still lots of trees around there. So we think the trees that we'll save or don't need to come down will still provide enough shade for the playground.
Yeah, I'm always proposing, don't cut down any trees if you don't have to. Because
Yep.
it took a long time to grow those trees. And they really make the park, as we all know.
I would agree, but on my professional opinion, there's 2 middle trees in that playground that are large, and the liability of the city over a playground with little kids and people, I would not like to put my name on that, having those trees there. So I believe 2 of them, in my professional opinion, would have to come down.
The park is going to be bigger than it is now.
Pretty much the same footprint, but a little bigger, if we can come within the budget.
Hey, this is Emma, and I just had a question because I definitely hear you on older trees and liability. I'm also wondering about just having shade because I know it gets hotter. It's getting hotter, and some cities are converting to more like making sure there's like a plan for having cool areas. I'm someone that walks around the town a lot, and so I have to like route myself during the hot months based on which streets have the most trees and shade. So spent a lot of time at Dragon Park with my young kids, so not wanting to get heated out.
Gail, for the purpose of tonight meeting, is there sort of a recommendation you would pitch to the group about what you would like to see them back or vote on tonight? Or you maybe share a little bit about what you're looking for, what decision you would like this group?
No, this was more of an update of where we're going, steering towards. Unless these 2 playgrounds are totally not what you want, we'd have to go back to square one. But with all the playgrounds, this is what we're gonna get, is something like the Copan or the Lee Burke. So again, we're waiting for rendering, the 3rd rendering. Again, that won't be the final one. We'll still have time to make changes. But as a leadership team, we're gonna try to narrow it down to 1 to bring to you guys that we would recommend that we continue to work with. So nothing from you guys, just trying to, again, keep you guys aware of where we're at.
Thanks, Kim.
Yeah, thank you, Cale. Because throughout this process, I think it's morphed into something that it wasn't originally started as. So just making everyone aware where the direction we're headed, I guess.
I'm impressed with all that they have been able to provide to you guys, considering what you'd struggled with in the past and, in a matter of a month and a half. So
Yeah, it's a lot
It's in the
easier
right
looking
route.
at 3D renderings than schematic drawings on on a 2D schematic drawing. So, yeah.
All right. Thanks, Cale. All right, moving on to item number 12, discussion with possible action on the Viroqua Welcome Center construction contract. Cindy, take it away.
I'll just speak a little bit and then I'll let Nate talk about the details in the contract. But this is a day that we have been waiting for a long time. Those of us who have been on the raising money for part of the WPA task force. We have Karen Innes here tonight, Jean Driscoll, Steve Willis. I don't know if anybody else on the committee. Gregory was involved way back. Anyway, we're excited. We had the bid opening, as you know, March 4th. We had a parent low bidder. Artisan Preservation, you guys approved him at our last meeting. And now we're at the point where we have a contract ready to be approved so we can get started with this thing. Since we met last, we've raised $2,000 more, and now that the county's, the museum is kind enough to let us go for that $10,000 grant. Nate and I have been working on that, and we feel good about that. That would leave 15,000 to go, and we can do that. That's not going to be a problem considering all the money we've raised so far. I think that's all I wanted to say. Anybody have any just general questions for me? Nate's going to go to like I said, the details. I want to thank Nate again for all his help in making this thing, getting us to this point.
Thanks, Cindy. You guys certainly carried the largest share of this. Any questions for Cindy while we got her captive? I'm sure she can use the microphone just at her chair as well. So Mark Zettler, our architect, is online as well. Mark, you hear us okay?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Mark. So what we have is a standard AIA document. Mark worked with us as well as the contractor at Artisan Preservation Company in putting this together. And Mark, I don't know if you want to just walk through it really quickly for the group. It was sent out as part of an addition to your packet, but only just yesterday. There's been a couple changes that we'll highlight, but these documents do a nice job of highlighting the unique language that is particular to our project. So go ahead, Mark, and you can just tell me when you want to scale through.
Sure. First page is just basically general information. Obviously, we can modify the date that it's actually going to be signed since I put today's date in there. But this is the second draft. So we had a one round of back and forth between the city attorney and the contractor's attorney. So I think we are 99% of the way there. At this point, if both sides agree and there's no more changes, I can finalize this document for signatures. And obviously, that's our goal at this point. I guess if you want to keep scrolling down through the contract, perhaps go to the second page. So we're going to just kind of walk through this real quick, and it's got some basic information. One of the changes I made from the first draft to this draft is I changed the commencement date to May 15th instead of at the contract signing to allow for the opportunity to pursue the county grant that we previously were speaking about. So the contractor, if this contract is signed, he can buy materials and everything, but he's not going to be able to show up on site until May 15th. And so then that sets the completion date as May 15th, 2026.
As Mark noted, the grant that Cindy and I are trying to go after requires us that we can't start until they award a grant. And so we're trying to buy some time to let their process finish so that we can be in the running. Okay, and that's what Mark talked about, 365 days later.
Yep, and it's just going to be a single phase. We're not going to do partial completions. It's not that big of a project. And then I've got the the bid on bid day plus the alternates, and that's all outlined here for the total of $625,507. And that was based on the motion that was made at the previous council meeting to accept certain alternates, but also the ones that are deleted are not in this contract. And then you can see there's an allowance for the door hardware. Because we're dealing with existing doors, it's going to be trial and error to see what actually is going to fit in those doors with where the holes and the mortises are. So there's $9,500 that's carried in the contract for buying door hardware and putting and some labor to install that hardware. And so that's for the interior doors that came from the old city hall. And then the 2 unit prices that were accepted as well are listed. So basically, I'll just talk about liquidated damages quickly. I did not put a provision in there for them because lawsuits and back through time, the courts have decided in previous court cases that if you provide a liquidated damages clause, you also need to provide a bonus clause. So if he gets done late, contractor is penalized X amount of dollars. Then you also have to provide a bonus if he gets done early. So just decided to leave that out. So there is no liquidated damages, no bonus clause. And then I think we can go on to the next section. So basically, they're going to be billing monthly. So this is where the third party is going to come in. So a third party reviewer is going to review the pay apps that come from the contractor, and the pay apps generally are submitted once a month, which is standard procedure for these types of projects. And so I've just outlined they have to have it in no later than the 7th day of the month. Retainage is 5%. That's an industry standard. And then that retainage, if the project passes substantial completion, then the retainage is released or paid out at that time. And we're not going to do any partial reductions. And then I've got 1% per month for a late payment fee, which is pretty typical. You usually see 1 to 1.5%. So the third party, if approved, Verbeeker would also be the initial decision maker if there is a dispute between the city and the contractor. Hopefully I have their correct office listed. They had 4 offices on their website.
That'd be the Reedsburg address.
Okay, so I can update that. And then the city attorney asked for litigation as a dispute resolution method rather than arbitration.
Mark, I did get notification that this is a sticking point for the contractor. So this
Okay,
is that we are not in agreement right now.
yes.
I had a conversation with Cindy today, and this is one of those clauses where it's interesting to fight over how you're going to fight over things. And it's one of those things where like we can talk about it, but if all goes well, it's going to be irrelevant. But
Yes, hopefully you don't have to use that clause. That's the goal anyway.
unfortunately, the city has been in places like this before, and so we'll just need to talk through that out. So we unfortunately don't have an answer about what to do with that at this point. Mark, I don't know if you have any ideas about setting this council up to make it approval contingent on something. We need to go back and essentially have the attorneys, our attorney with them, just figure out who's gonna give, because we can't have final resolution both as binding arbitration and litigation. It's got
to be one or the other.
The other. So somebody's going to have to give. Frankly, I'm not a lawyer. George is the one who really stuck on this. He's not here tonight to know whether or not he could bend on it. So
I think if the council is in agreement on everything but that, you'd have to make some sort of a motion where you accept the contract pending the resolution of this Article 6.2 being agreed upon. I think that was really the only major sticking point in this entire contract from what was written.
Yep, that's correct.
And then we've just got more general information, your contact information. And then the bonds, so basically Exhibit A, which is going to be the insurance and bond certificate. For the bonds, I believe there has to be a signed contract in place before the bonding company will issue the certificates. So that will be attached to the contract once it is enacted, I believe is how that works. But the insurance certificates should be there up front and before the contract is signed.
And we are getting, as a city, issuing a builder's risk policy to cover us as well through the recommendation of Mark as well as Terry Christensen. So I've been working on getting that put into place as well.
Yeah, and that's completely different than the contractor's liability insurance.
Okay.
And then here just outlines and exhibits. So basically attachment B, which I sent along with the packet, is the listed drawings. So it lists every sheet of drawings, and that was part of the spec book. And then exhibit C is the table of contents for the actual spec book. And there were 2 addendums that went out with bidding. So those have been basically, this section just incorporates all of those documents legally into the contract. And we really didn't have much for other exhibits. I did also attach the supplementary conditions, which sets the insurance limits for the contractor. So that's why that section's included. And then I believe we just have signature lines after that. So I think in a nutshell, that is the contract. Yes.
So really, the contract's in good shape except for that one item. As I sat here and thought, and Mark sort of gave his recommendation, you know, the council could move forward, approving the contract, with either option, arbitration or, litigation at Vernon County Circuit Court pending the approval of the city attorney, and just let George decide. If George feels that he wants to stand his ground and push, then we may eventually, then the other individual would have to give and we would sign that contract. If George says, you know, it's not that big of a deal, that's fine, I'm content with it, the council's content with going either way, then we basically covered our bases either way, and we just let the city attorney make the final call on our behalf. Frankly, or the other option is we just wait. As Mark said, we approve the contract in full, but then we have to bring back that final item for approval at the next meeting. Which I would prefer not to do, considering we're right here, but it's your guys' call on what you would like to do.
And I will add that the sooner we get a contract in place, the sooner we can start buying materials, because we are expecting increases in materials with some of the current economic situations, particularly lumber coming from Canada.
Just for everybody, we are locked into prices. This is a bid, so the bids are held. But obviously, there's other things.
Yeah.
Getting moving that is very beneficial, right? We don't like putting contractors in a position that they're already at a loss and have to find ways to make up time. Not saying that this individual would do that. I don't know Dan, but starting off on a good foot is always a positive thing when it comes to these contracts. So I guess my recommendation as your administrator, if you're comfortable with it, is just to say either or, let George figure out if he wants to stand his ground or not. But if he's comfortable with arbitration, allow final resolution by binding arbitration. And if he feels that he can't make the decision and that it has to come back to council, then he'll let me know that.
Well, this is Todd. I'll make a motion to accept the construction contract for the Baroka Welcome Center pending Article 6.2. Let the city attorney come to the conclusion on what to do with that.
This is Seth. I'll second that motion.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Then do we need to do a voice vote?
That would be a roll call, but I want to clarify to make sure that this is correct on how I'm writing this in, because this is important. I have approving the contract pending Article 6.2 review by city attorney with his recommendation. Is that going to be good enough for what you guys need without having to bring it back? Well, decision?
Yeah.
I just need to
Final
put something in there
decision
with
on-
that.
Yeah, with the city attorney's final decision on that Article 6.2.
Okay. That works for everybody? Seth?
I agree.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, Cindy,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Crystal,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Seth,
Aye.
Andrew,
Aye.
Mark Kirking,
Aye.
Emma,
Aye.
Godspeed.
Aye.
All right. Thanks, Nate. Thanks, Cindy. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 13, discussion with possible action regarding, is it Veerbecker contract for third-party inspector for the Welcome Center project?
So I'm just going to reiterate this real quick. I don't think we've spoken about this before, but do we talk about this
Yeah.
before? This agreement basically sets Veerbecker up to do essentially the same services they're doing on the fire station project, which is that because Keller is both architect and construction manager, we need an impartial third party reviewing our pay requests and making sure that everything that we're being charged for in that pay request is appropriate for us to pay. And so in this situation with the bathhouse project, we have our architect and the contractor who have a little bit of a conflict of interest. The contractor owns a share of stock in Mark's company, but not the other way around. So Mark doesn't own anything of the contractor does own a piece of Mark's business. And so for that reason and a preponderance of caution, and in working with the city attorney, I said this is the way we should handle it, just to make sure that there's that the city's interest is being protected. So essentially, it's the same contract. This was included in your packet, and it basically the same individual, Levi Sisbach, who is assisting the fire station project, would review pay requests, come on site, do a review to make sure that what they're charging us for has been completed, or the materials that we're being charged for have been purchased and are on site waiting installation. And so I feel like from Chad's perspective as the fire chief, we've had really favorable experience with this arrangement, and that the money is included as part of the budget. That's right, we talked about it last time we were talking about budget. The price they're estimating around $10,000, but that is an estimate. Again, we're talking 12 months of work, which roughly equates to 12 pay requests. And so I roughed it out at about $1,000 per pay request. So they're thinking it might be a little bit more. And again, they're just going to settle up based on the actual amount of time spent. So that's in front of you for approval, if you so wish. And again, I would make this contingent on the contract being completed, and then we would cause this to be signed thereafter.
All right.
I'll give it a shot. This is Seth. I move that we accept Veerbecker's contract as a third party oversight for the Welcome Center construction pending construction contract signature or acceptance.
This is Crystal. I'll second.
Is this another roll call?
John,
Aye.
Crystal,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Seth,
Aye.
Andrew,
Aye.
Pat Kirking,
Aye.
Emma,
Aye.
Todd Spade,
Aye.
and Cindy.
Aye.
Thank you. All right, moving to item number 14, review and approval of bids for annual general asphalt. That comes from Public Works.
All right, well, I'm gonna do a little bit of screen sharing. And believe it or not, go through a very brief PowerPoint for the next few items just so that we're all able to see what's going on. So we had a whole bunch of bids. That's like the next 3 items. The first bid that we're looking at is our general asphalt bid. We had 2 bidders. We had Matthew was the full bidder, came in on time. Then we had Clayshick come, but they were only partially bid, which is the same with what they did last year and typical of the smaller outfits, but their bid was late. And we discussed this at Public Works, and we decided that between the quality of work, the ability to have it submitted on time, that we would have the full bid items for the general asphalt bid go to Matthew. So, and again, that came from Public Works.
Cindy, I'll make a motion. We accept Matthew for the annual general asphalt bid or project.
This is Seth. I second that.
All right, we'll look for a roll call vote.
Crystal,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Seth,
Aye.
Andrew.
Aye.
Todd Kirking,
Aye.
Emma,
Aye.
Todd Spade,
Aye.
Cindy,
Aye.
and John.
Aye.
Thank you. All right, number 15, review and approval of bids for asphalt resurfacing project, Chicago Avenue, also comes from Public Works.
All right, so I'll come back to this slide, but I just wanted to go through overall what our plan is. So this is our PASER rating that we do every 2 years with the DOT. And essentially it goes through every street in the city and does the condition rating. Red is the worst condition, followed by yellow, blue, then black and green. So we would try to focus our efforts on red and yellow. Ideally, our seal coating is a yellow or blue, preferably a blue to keep it in good condition. But obviously, this is our current state as of 2 years ago, so I would say it's probably worse, not better. That green area that came up is the Center Avenue project, so we don't necessarily need to worry about those with a resurfacing or a seal coat. The next one is the items or the projects that are in the proposed capital improvement plan for funding in this next 5 years. So again, we don't worry about those ones for these types of projects. The next are the blue. The blue areas are us trying to take care of the remainder with the abilities that we have, which comes from resurfacing and seal coating. All right, so I will skip ahead, to this one. This is the section that we're looking at for resurfacing. So when we say Chicago Avenue, what do we mean? This project here is Chicago Avenue. It would be between Broadway and Independence. We were looking at other roads in the area. We previously did Independence from Western and going west. And we're looking at doing the ones in between here, but they're a little trickier with more like slope to deal with. And with a new grader operator and crew, we thought we would do a smaller, more manageable project. And so this one fit the bill between Broadway and Independence. And so that's what we're talking about when we're looking at the bid here. Excuse me, right here. So we had one bidder come in. That was Matthew, which is pretty typical for our area. For anything larger, it generally tends just to be Matthew. So they came at it at a good price, though. I had it estimated at 38,000, and theirs is 34,030. So in Public Works, we approved that as well.
Yes, we're looking for a motion.
Mrs. Todd, I move to approve the bid for asphalt resurfacing on Chicago Avenue.
I don't second it.
All right, we have a first and second. Any other questions, comments? Another roll call vote, rather.
Steve,
Aye.
Seth,
Aye.
Andrew.
Aye.
Kirking,
Aye.
Emma,
Aye.
Todd Spade,
Aye.
Cindy,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
and Crystal.
Aye.
And moving on to number 16, review and approval of bids for annual seal coat chip seal.
Okay, so going back to this picture that we have, as you can see, there's a lot of red still out there, and this is our next sort of 5+ year plan. And there's projects that are not on that radar that are already pretty terrible. And so that's why we're looking at chip seal versus a microsurface. We've used microsurfacing a lot, but it's more for a different, like a higher quality road. And so we're really doing a Band-Aid until we can get in there and really do a full reconstruction project, at least in this area here, which is Western. And we know that Maple needs to be redone for water and sewer, down the road. So we don't really want to resurface that either. And we also have limited funds, so we need to make them stretch. So we went through a chip seal proposal and we looked at a few areas. This one was actually brought to me by staff. They're really having a hard time with the turnaround at the end of Maple. We had previously gone through LRIP, which is the DOT program, to get Prairie Wind Way resurfaced. We were originally planning on asphalting it. That's the only allowance for city roads by that program. But we feel like seal coating is a better option. We can widen the road and maintain it better because it's a rural cross section, meaning there's no curb and gutter that we would have to deal with. And so we have 2 bids on the bid tab. One was both are additive bid items. One was for single chip seal, which means they go over it once essentially. The other one was for double seal, and we recommend the double seal here, especially we'll end up rebuilding the gravel part of the road. Washington was the base bid. We're looking at between Decker and Parkinson. This area is really bad, and there is sewer that needs to be replaced. This project has been on the capital improvement list for 10 years, and we just never seem to be able to get it done. We've evolved about what we want to do. It's in its entirety not in good shape for the surface. There's bad sidewalk, bad curb, bad drainage, so it doesn't really make it a good project to do in-house, which was our original thought. And then Church to Broadway, that section is also not in very good shape. And that break in between is because we did that with the Northwest project, so that was resurfaced. And then the last additive bid item that we looked at was Minchell, especially in this far end here. A lot of pine trees that always causes this problem with frost heaves and such. So that would be what we would look for our seal coat package. So again, we had the base bid at Washington, and we would pick all of the additive bid items except that Prairie Wind Way, we would select the double seal instead of the single seal. And that put out of our bidders, we had Scott and Farner. Scott was the low bidder of overall, both on the base bid and on the different bids with different styles of chips. Scott and the Farner quartz would be the similar comparable type of chip. So coming from Public Works, we had recommended that one that's circled in red, that $31,750, and essentially it's doing all of what's listed here and then selecting the double seal for Prairie Wind Way.
Cindy, I make a motion, we accept Scott's bid for seal coat chip seal and doing the Prairie Wind Way double for $31,750.
This is Seth. I second that motion.
All right, there's a first and a second. I'm looking for a roll call vote.
Seth,
Aye.
Andrew,
Aye.
Todd Kirking,
Aye.
Emma,
Aye.
Todd Spath.
Aye.
Cindy.
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Crystal,
Aye.
and Steve.
Aye. And item 17, review and approval of bids for sewer lining.
All right, this is my last one, I think. Okay, so we put so the sewer lining essentially is like we make a pipe inside of the current pipe, which only works in certain situations where the pipe maintains its structural integrity, but may have cracks or some other issues with it. And so we had a base bid, which was, this is Peterson Court, and there's 2 sections in here. That was the base bid. Our additive bid item was Beckedall Court, and the sewer is only in this section here. So we had a single bidder, that's what ended up happening last year. In the past 4 years, 5 years, we have had other bidders, but they've always come in so much higher. I think they just stopped bidding because Vigy Sewer always came in significantly lower. Like their cost was usually half, and I think a lot of that is just mobilization. We also had tried, historically and sort of just across the board. Usually you go with steam cure, but we started wanting to explore water cure last year because we were concerned about odor migration, and it just is better contained when it's using water for curing. Last time we bid it, they were quite a bit different, but we decided we wanted to do it anyway to try it. This time there's only a $4,000 difference. Ooh, what have I done? There we go. And so I think that just signals that doing the water cure is just the way to go. So in Public Works, we came forward with water cure at $39,766, which I thought they were really good bids. I think across the board, our bids have come in better than they did last year. I had assumed that we would be close to 50,000 with adding possibly over with our additive bid item. And so we're at, just under 40,000. So this is well within budget and seems like good numbers.
This is Seth. I make a motion that we accept the, I'm forgetting the name, Visa
Cast in place pipe.
for doing sewer lining.
Oh, VigiSewer. Sorry. VigiSewer. It's the company.
This is
Or
Crystal, I'll second.
I can also amend that to choose the water cured option.
Now I'll second.
Thank you. And we'll go do another roll call vote.
Andrew,
Aye.
Mark Kirking,
Aye.
Emma,
Aye.
Pat Spaeth,
Aye.
Cindy,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Crystal,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
and Seth.
Aye.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 18, discussion with possible action on fire department on-call stipend policy. And this comes forward from Finance Committee.
5 of you get to listen to the same thing over. So this is a policy that some of it's been in place for a long time, and we wanted to get it in written form. So Nate helped draft it. It's the fire officer on-call piece. So the Broke Fire Department has 24/7, 365, an officer in charge at all times to make sure that we have good coverage and good response. It's 3 sections. The top one is the one that's been the longest. So weekends starting at 5 o'clock on Friday till 10 o'clock on Sunday. One of the fire officers takes command and covers that time. That's in place. That's again just in writing, so that you guys have it, the officers have it, and anybody in the future can see what it is. That is covered by, if you remember, your fire officers get an annual pay to be an officer, to have the extra responsibilities, and to also cover calls approximately 6 weekends out of the month if you have to do 7 to equal the 52. So that's the first section. The second section is talking about trying to cover some weeknight on-call coverage. Currently, I cover from 10 o'clock Sunday night approximately till 5 o'clock on Friday, 24/7. Through those evenings or days and evenings. So we spelled out what that could possibly look like. You can see the date or the days of the week and then the timelines. And that's to give me, won't be every night. It's going to be here and there when someone's available and able to cover, to give me a chance to leave town or not have to think about protecting the city and the townships. That'll fluctuate a little bit. It kind of explains that decision between or discretion with myself and the fire officer. All of our fire officers have full-time jobs. And so some of them get done at work at 3 in the afternoon. Some of them get done at 6:30, whatever it might be. So starting at 5 isn't always going to be the exact, but as is when the end time will be. Some of them are up at 3 in the morning to go to work. And so, that'll fluctuate too. But we put it in there as best we can, kind of a standard schedule, and then I'll work with them through that process. So what that would look like is, and quite a bit of this has already been budgeted for. for the 2025 budget. We just we hadn't spelled out exactly how that would look and how those funds would be allocated. So that a lot of that is already there. But what we came up with is essentially, we do about every 6 hours would have a value to it. So 6 hours would be worth $25. If you worked a full 24-hour period or covered for a 24-hour period, you get $100. So every 6 hours is worth $25. There's some proration in there. If they can't work a full 24, that we'll work through and have some ideas on that. But again, it kind of spells it out and gives them some incentive to help with some of this coverage. The last section is a full day, and so that's more like vacation or me, trying to take a vacation day and be gone for a longer period of time, and that spells it out that way too. There's something I'm supposed to say that you brought up last time, and now I don't remember. Again, it's made to be flexible. We have had some fire officers, when I've been gone for a few days, actually take vacation day so that they can be available for call. And so it's ultimately costing them money, or at least a free day for them to do what they want to do. And so this is a way to start compensating them a little bit for that and maybe entice them to be willing to do it more, because I need more, for lack of a better way to put it. So I think with that being said, Nate, what did I miss this time?
Yeah, thanks, Chief. Again, the goal on this is to have somebody step in for the chief so he feels like he's not constantly tied to his desk, works an 8-hour shift, and then has to also respond through all hours of the night. We've often referred to it as respite, right? Giving some respite from the responsibilities, the weight on the shoulders is important to maintain him in the position. And then, of course, the time off, needing somebody there to cover longer shifts. I think it was really telling when we were in that meeting with Assistant Chief Martin, and he told us of several times he's had to use vacation days from his job just so that he could sit there and be on call so that Chad could go to a conference on the other side of the state as part of being a fire chief. And so these things are, I think, important for us to compensate people appropriately for the work that they do provide and the responsibilities that they carry. We ran it, I ran it by Sarah because Sarah has a similar on-call policy for the utility workers, and the compensation is fairly commensurate between the two departments. And so I don't think there's going to be any hard feelings about what one's getting compensated for their on-call responsibilities versus another. And we spoke with Joy, our deputy clerk who handles payroll, and we feel comfortable that this can be implemented administratively. There's nothing about it that's overly burdensome, but Chad and her will have to spend some time just making sure documentation is proper and straight. But we wholly don't think we're not going to be reinventing the wheel. They're already handling a bunch of payroll for a bunch of part-time employees that they have to deliver to Joy on a monthly basis. So this should be no different. So, yeah, I think the policy is solid for now. As Chad said to me before, we might have to tweak it a little bit as we really get into it, but that's any policy we have here at the city. So.
I make a motion, we approve the fire department on-call stipend policy.
A second.
All right, motion and a second. This is another roll call vote, please.
Todd Kirking.
Aye.
Emma.
Aye, sorry.
Pat Spaeth.
Aye.
Cindy.
Aye.
John.
Aye.
Crystal.
Aye.
Steve.
Aye.
Seth.
Aye.
And Andrew.
Aye.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks,
Thank you,
Chief.
Chief.
Thank you.
Number 19, payment of the bills.
Finance approved these at their meeting. I just wanted to point out, in the original bills on page 4, we had the pay request, number 7 was paid, after you approved it at the last council meeting. I did want to point out that we have had most of the bond proceeds invested, with Ellers. And we did pull 500,000 out to put into the general fund. So we didn't have to pull the full amount, but I did want to make sure that you guys were aware that we did pull some of that out of the investment to pay towards that. Otherwise, they approved all of them to go through.
And for those of you who weren't here at finance, that's part of the plan, right? We had the debt proceeds, let it make some money for us in an investment, and then as the pay request comes in, we pull the principal out so that we can make our payments. So it's all part of the plan, and the investment's been performing really well for us.
This is Seth. I make a motion, we pay the bills.
I don't second it.
And another roll call.
Emma,
Aye.
Todd Spath,
Aye.
Cindy,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Crystal,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Seth,
Aye.
Andrew,
Aye.
Dr. King.
Aye.
All right, agenda item 20, second period for public comment.
I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank all of you and the city employees for the great job you guys do. Nobody realizes, and of course, I knew some of it because I've been on the school board and stuff. No one realized the time and energy that you guys all put into this and that all the employees do. And I've really had a great experience working with people as we work through Eckhart. So I just wanted to say thank you for all you guys do.
Hello, my name's Krista Brown. I'm going to echo what she just said and say thank you. I'm standing or came tonight as kind of an echo to what Greg Splinter, I think, shared earlier. I missed his dialogue at the beginning. Professionally, I do interior design, but I also represent clients and help them navigate the building process. So I've worked in Minneapolis, I've worked in Madison. Our family relocated here 2 years ago. I'm currently working in residential and now some commercial. I've recently had the privilege of working with Nate and the fire chief related to a complicated project that has, it's a home that has been used as a dwelling for a long time. Someone in the millennial generation has come in and purchased it and is doing all the things we want to see happen in almost any place, but especially in a rural place where they're updating and making quality of living better in an existing space. And there's just some complications with some of the, as Greg said, there's zoning and then there's code. And they go together, but they're not the same. And my point tonight is to say and bring to you that as the city grows and changes and is rehabbed, this is probably not all unfamiliar to you, but working with homeowners and people who haven't gone through the process before and helping them navigate in rural places where there's not somewhere to necessarily knock on the door and say, hey, I need a permit. And then the person receiving that request saying, well, tell me more about what you're doing. Is it single family? Is it duplex? Is it multifamily over 3? Well, now we're submitting to state drawings. On and on. Okay. So what I'm coming tonight to reiterate is that the city should look at how can we create a supportive process and what is the right communication strategy? Is that at the new bathhouse? Is that in realtor packets? Is that, what's the right way to help educate the public to also lift the burden off the city, to lift the burden off of, every person in a project has a role, and how can we help streamline the process? So that's what I'm coming to hopefully propose as a future item in some committee of how do we make growing not so painful? So thank you and good night.
Thank you. Is there anyone online, Nate? Or any other public in the audience?
Steve, it doesn't look like anybody online would like to make a comment.
All righty. In that case, we're looking for an adjournment.
Todd, I make a motion to adjourn.
This is Crystal. I'll second.
All those in favor?
Uh,
We are adjourned. Thank you.